Grab yourself a pillow, make yourself comfortable, and allow the day to slowly drift away behind you, as tonight we travel back to the quiet streets of 18th century Frankfurt, to a small shop tucked into a narrow lane where one family began building something that would quietly stretch across Europe, not with noise or spectacle, but with patience, letters, discipline, and time. Imagine the city first. Frankfurt, in the late 1700s, was not the polished financial center many know today, but a busier, smaller, more intimate place, with stone streets softened by dust and rain, wooden carts rolling gently over uneven roads, and merchants opening shutters in the cool early morning. Candles flickered behind windows, horses exhaled softly into the winter air, and somewhere in the Jewish quarter, where space was tight and opportunities were narrower still, a young boy named Mayer Amschel Rothschild was growing up surrounded by coins, not ordinary pocket change, but old coins, rare coins, coins from distant kingdoms and vanished rulers, each one carrying a little history in its metal. His father traded in these objects, dealing in coins and small goods, a modest business, not grand, not glamorous, but steady. And so Mayer's childhood was shaped by tiny details, the weight of silver in the palm, the careful study of markings, the slow art of determining what something was truly worth. Business, for him, was never loud. It was quiet observation, a careful eye, a patient hand. When other children may have been running through streets, Mayer was learning values, margins, and trust. Trust, especially, was everything. In a world without instant communication, without digital records, without phones or emails or screens of any kind, business moved through people, through reputation, through promises kept, a handshake, a sealed letter, a name people remembered kindly, and Mayer understood this deeply. Over time, his small dealings in rare coins began attracting more distinguished customers, collectors, nobles, aristocrats, people with inherited wealth and very particular tastes. One of these clients would quietly alter the trajectory of Mayer's life, a prince, specifically Crown Prince Wilhelm of Hesse, a man with considerable wealth and a need for capable financial agents. Mayer had begun as a coin dealer, but slowly, almost imperceptibly, he was drifting toward something larger. Finance, not the flashing numbers and frantic markets many imagine today, but the older form of finance, letters, loans, transfers of wealth across borders, relationships built over decades. Think of the rhythm of it, a clerk opening ledgers at dawn, ink drying on thick paper, wax seals pressed onto folded correspondence, messengers departing on horseback, money itself rarely seen directly, but always moving, always being tracked, counted, promised, recorded. Mayer built his business carefully, not in dramatic leaps, but brick by brick, and perhaps what made him unusual was that he did not think only of himself. He thought like a system builder, a family architect. He had children, many of them, and instead of allowing the business to remain local and limited, he imagined something broader, a network, a family web stretched across Europe. One son would remain in Frankfurt, another sent to Vienna, another to Naples, another to Paris, and another to London. It was an elegant idea, not simply expanding branches, but placing trusted family members in the major capitals of Europe, at a time when borders were slower, communication was delayed, and uncertainty was common. This was quietly brilliant, because who could be trusted more than family? Picture the conversations. A father seated at a wooden desk late into the evening, candles burning lower, papers spread neatly before him, his sons listening carefully, instructions given not only on finance, but conduct, discipline, marriage, reputation, continuity. The Rothschild family became known not just for wealth, but for structure, rules, routines, coordination. Letters flowed constantly between brothers, across mountains, rivers, and kingdoms, each one carrying updates on markets, currencies, politics, opportunities. And because they were positioned in multiple cities, they often learned important information quickly, not through magic, not through myth, but through geography, organization, and relentless correspondence. In London, Nathan Mayer Rothschild, perhaps the most famous of Mayer's sons, developed the English branch. London itself was changing rapidly, a city of fog, river traffic, counting houses, and growing imperial trade. Ships arrived carrying tea, textiles, spices, metals. Insurance contracts were written, credit extended, deals negotiated over long tables and warm fireplaces. Nathan was known for intensity, precision, and enormous focus. But even here, within this expanding world, the business remained rooted in family method. The brothers wrote often, sometimes daily. Imagine receiving one of these letters: thick paper, folded carefully, ink slightly faded by travel, a report from Paris on government bonds, a note from Vienna regarding political instability, an update from Naples on local markets. This was their internet, their bloodstream, their nervous system. The family network pulsed quietly beneath European commerce. There is something almost soothing in the operational beauty of it, not because finance is always simple, but because their model was so methodical, so deliberate. Nothing rushed without reason, nothing casual. Even marriages were often considered strategically, with strong emphasis on preserving wealth, continuity, and alignment. To modern ears, this may sound unusual, but within the context of their world, it reflected an obsession with stability, a desire to keep the machine coherent. The 19th century unfolded, and the Rothschild name expanded in influence. Government financing, infrastructure, mining, railways. The industrial age was arriving, slowly transforming landscapes. Rail tracks cut across countryside, stations emerged, steel moved, coal-fueled engines, and capital was needed for all of it. Banking families like the Rothschilds became part of the architecture beneath visible progress, not always seen, but deeply embedded. Money financed motion, and motion changed society. Yet what is fascinating is how much of this empire was still built through habits that now feel almost quaint. Morning correspondence, ledger reviews, personal visits, long-term planning, dining conversations about interest rates and sovereign debt, family councils, archives, records. There is an intimacy to old business that can feel strangely cozy, not because it was small in scale, but because its mechanics were tactile. You could hear it, paper rustling, pens scratching, coins clinking softly in drawers, footsteps approaching office floors, a clock chiming somewhere in the background. And throughout generations, the Rothschilds maintained something many businesses struggle to preserve: continuity, not perfection. No dynasty is without challenge, competition, or adaptation, but the family understood succession, how fragile institutions can be without systems, without culture, without clear expectations. Their story is not simply one of accumulating wealth, it is also one of architecture, designing an organism larger than one individual, something capable of surviving its founder. And perhaps that is why this story has lingered for so long, not because of mystery alone, though people often surround wealthy families with mythology, but because there is something compelling about quiet scale, a small shop becoming a continental network, a boy handling rare coins becoming a patriarch whose descendants operated across capitals. It reminds us that many empires do not begin with grand announcements. Sometimes they begin with one person noticing details others ignore, understanding value deeply, building trust slowly, and repeating small, disciplined actions for decades. As the evening settles further around us now, picture Frankfurt once more, the original shop, more humble than legend suggests. Shelves, drawers, ledgers, coins, arranged carefully, a candle flame moving gently in still air. Outside, distant carriage wheels, muted conversation, a narrow street fading into night, and inside, a young mayor learning the patience that would shape generations. Not knowing exactly what his family would become, only knowing what needed doing the next morning. Another client, another ledger, another letter, another small, careful step, and perhaps there is something comforting in that, the idea that large things are often built quietly, without fanfare, without urgency, simply through repetition, care, and time. So as your thoughts begin to soften, and the edges of the day blur gently into darkness, let yourself remain for a little while longer in that warm, candlelit room. among old coins, folded letters, polished desks, and softly closing books, where business was once slower, quieter, almost ceremonial, and where one family, through routine and patience, stitched itself carefully into history. You can stay there as long as you like, resting in the gentle rhythm of ink, paper, and time, and little by little, allow sleep to arrive, quietly, just as the first fortunes once did.